Ahlan, welcome back to Access Arabic's Let's Learn Arabic course. Today we will begin with lesson 3, which is compounds. If this is your first time joining us, feel free to click the card above and start the course from the beginning, or if there's any videos that you've missed out and you want to check, feel free. But we will now proceed with today's lesson. So the lesson objectives are to learn the difference between complete and incomplete compounds, and to learn some rules pertaining to the adjectival phrase, and as usual we will complete 2 translation exercises inshallah. So we'll begin with compounds. Murakkab is the Arabic word for a compound, and a compound simply means a combination of 2 or more words together. And there are 2 types of murakkab. There's murakkab tamm, as you can see here, and there's murakkab naqis. So the important thing to remember is, if you put 2 words together, this is called a compound. So you can have single words such as kitab, or you can put words together like kitabu Hamid, which means Hamid's book. This is a compound. So we will begin with murakkab tamm. Murakkab tamm is a complete compound. This means it is a combination of words that conveys a complete meaning. So in other words, it is a sentence or speech. So murakkab tamm simply just means putting 2 words together to form a sentence. And a sentence in Arabic is known as jumla, or it can refer to a speech as well if it's not written down. Like this, what I'm doing now is kalam, because I'm speaking. Examples of this are ar-rajulu hasan. So that's ar-rajulu hasanun. Ar-rajulu, the man, is good. Hasanun. We've learned these words before. So as you can see here, now we are not focused on one singular word anymore. We're now dealing with compounds. This is 2 words put together to make a sentence. Ar-rajulu hasanun, the man is good. Another example is this. Khudil kitaba, take the book. We don't have to worry about the word khud for the time being, because this is a imperative, is fi'l amr. We will learn this in future lessons. Likewise, as you can see here, this ends in a fathah, it's maftuh, but we don't have to worry about case endings for the time being. We will start learning this in more detail later on, from around lesson 10 onwards. And the third example is Rabbir zuqni, O my sustainer, Ya Allah, grant me sustenance. As you can see now, we're no longer dealing with single words like we did in the previous lessons. If you want to learn about singular words, feel free to click on the card and access past lessons. But this is the quintessential example of murakkab tamm. It is words put together to form a complete sentence. And as we said, a sentence is called jumla or kalam, depending on context. So this brings us to murakkab naqis. If murakkab tamm is a complete compound, it only makes sense that murakkab naqis is an incomplete compound. This means it's a combination of words that does not convey a complete meaning. So in other words, it is a phrase. It forms part of a sentence. And there are several types of murakkab naqis, but for this lesson we will focus on one type, which is called murakkab tawsifi, and that is the adjectival phrase. So this is what we're going to focus on for today's lesson. If you want to know what the vowel markings are, is murakkab. So that's how you write murakkab with the harakat on them. Taw, si, fi. So in this specific example, it will be murakkabun tawsifiyun. So as we've mentioned, murakkab tamm is a complete compound. It conveys it's a combination of words that conveys a complete meaning, so it is a sentence. Murakkab naqis is a combination of words that does not convey a complete meaning. So in other words, it's a phrase or a part of a sentence. We now move on to the adjectival phrase. It is really important to grasp this concept and to understand it. So I'll explain it, but if there's anything that you've not understood or if I've not explained it properly, by all means feel free to leave a comment and I will reply to you. But please do try and understand this concept, because in order to read Arabic without the vowel markings, you do need to understand this concept and also to understand the Arabic language as a whole. So murakkab tawsifi consists of two parts: the mawsuf and the sifah. The mawsuf is the thing being described, and the sifah is the description, also known in English as an adjective. The sifah always copies the mawsuf in definitude. If you remember, we have covered definitude in a previous class, i.e. the state of being definite and indefinite, ma'rifah and nakira. If you have missed this lesson, or if you would like to recap it, I will attach a link for the video and feel free to view it. So to understand the idea of the sifah always copying the mawsuf in definitude, we will use the following example. We have ar-rajulu as-salih and rajulun salihun. Ar-rajulu as-salih and rajulun salih. In this first example, ar-rajulu as-salih, the pious man, as you can see here, it has the alif lam. So ar-rajulu is ma'rifah, it is definite. Therefore the sifah, the adjective, has to copy it in being definite. As-salih, as you can see here. So if the thing being described is definite, then the description, the sifah, has to be definite as well. In the second example, as you can see here, these are both indefinite. Rajulun is indefinite. It has no alif lam, therefore it has tanween. And because of that, so does the adjective. So in the first case, ar-rajulu is ma'rifah, it is definite. And in the second case, rajulun is nakira, it is indefinite. So in the first case, the sifah is also definite, just like its mawsuf. And in the second part, in the second example, the sifah is indefinite, just like its mawsuf. One thing that is important to bear in mind is, in English, the sifah equals first. In English. In Arabic, the mawsuf equals first. So the murakkab tawsifi consists of the mawsuf and sifah. Mawsuf and sifah. The thing being described comes first, such as man, and the adjective comes second. Hasan, good. So rajulun hasanun means a good man. So literally it will be translated as man good, because the thing being described comes first. However, of course, we will not translate it as man good, because in English this does not make sense. So we will translate it as a good man. However, if this was in English, it would be good man, because it is the other way round. So that brings us to a recap of today's class. Today we learnt what a murakkab is. A murakkab is a compound. Compound means combination of two or more words put together. And there are two types of compound. Two types of compound. Tamm, which is a complete compound, and naqis, which is an incomplete compound. Murakkab tamm is also known as jumla or kalam. Jumla means sentence and kalam means speech. We've mentioned that there are many types of murakkab naqis, but for this lesson we focus specifically on murakkab tawsifi. We mentioned that murakkab tawsifi consists of mawsuf and sifah. So murakkab tawsifi, murakkab tawsifi. It consists of the mawsuf and sifah. The mawsuf is always first and it's followed by the sifah, and we learnt that the sifah copies mawsuf in definitude. It copies it in other things too, which we will learn in further lessons, but for the time being you need to understand that if the mawsuf is definite, then so is the sifah. If the mawsuf is indefinite, then so is the sifah. Arabic is very simple. This is not rocket science. It's simply a case of understanding that the adjective always copies the thing it's describing in definitude. As I've said, this is an extremely important concept to understand. So if I've not explained it properly, or if you have not understood it properly, just let me know. I don't bite. Just leave it in the comments and I will answer you, inshallah. So that brings us to the end of the theory section of today's class. We've covered murakkabs, compounds. We covered that they can be complete and incomplete, and we've covered one type of incomplete compound. So now we will learn today's new vocabulary. As with last time, I will read the word and its meaning, but I also suggest that you pause the video and write these words down or learn them however you see fit. So first we have bustan, which means garden. Second we have bahr, which means sea. Bittikh, that's bittikh, means melon. Amiq means deep, as in something that is deep, such as the ocean. So we could say bahrun amiq. which means a deep ocean. Bahrun amiq, deep ocean. Think about that, deep ocean. What is that? Well, there's two words put together, so it's a compound. And amiq is describing the bahr. The amiq, yani deep, is saying that the sea is deep. This is murakkab tawsifi. The only reason why I'm stuttering a little bit is because obviously this specific example has just come up out of the blue. I didn't plan this, but as I was reading it, I just noticed Bahrun Amiq is the perfect example of mawsuf sifah combination. Today's lesson, Bahrun Amiq, deep sea. So a deep sea. Bahr in this case is indefinite. Amiq therefore is also indefinite because the sifah always copies the mawsuf in definitude. That was a tangent, but I felt like there's benefit in this tangent, that's why I went on it. The next word is radi. Radi meaning bad. And we've got tuffah. Tuffah is an apple. Rumman. Rumman is a pomegranate. Shari'. Shari' is street. Qasr. Qasr is palace. Mahal. Mahal is a place. Masjid. Alhamdulillah, as we know, masjid is a mosque. Malik. Malik is a king. Jubn. That's jubn is cheese. And qalam. Qalam is a pen. Ward means rose. That's ward, as in the flower rose. Jayyid. Jayyid means good. So it is the opposite of radi, which means bad. Hulw. Hulw means sweet, as in sweet tasting. And arid means broad or wide. Mashid means strong. And nadhif. Nadhif means clean. Wasi'. Wasi' also means wide. So arid and wasi' both mean wide. Azim means great, like Allahul Azim, Allah is great. Malih aw malih. We learned in the last lesson that aw means or. So malih is salty, or malih. So you can use either. You could say malih or you can say malih. They both mean salty. Saghir, that's saghir means small, opposite of kabir, which means big. And ahmar means red. So ward, ahmar means red rose. That's another example of murakkab tawsifi. As I've said, this is a concept that you must understand because you need it in order to read Arabic, in order to speak Arabic, in order to comprehend and understand Arabic. You need to understand the concept of adjectives, because otherwise you will not be able to use descriptors, and your understanding of Arabic will be very dull and bland, and we won't be able to understand things like the Quran and the Salah and whatnot. So it is very, very, very important to understand this concept of murakkab tawsifi. As I've said, if I have not explained it properly or if you haven't understood it, by all means feel free to leave a comment and I will inshallah get back to you. So now it's time for the exercises. Once again, I advise you pause this video and complete these translations yourself, and then you can I will also go through it, and obviously you can check back with my translations. So Allahul Azim means the great Lord. This is another example of murakkab tawsifi. As you can see, Allah, lafz al-jalala means the word Allah. In Arabic, we can refer, so for example here, if we say azim, azim means great. So this will be referred to as a word. However, when it comes to Allah, we don't call it the word Allah. We refer to this as lafzul jalala, the great name, the majestic name. So Allahul Azim, the great Lord. Lafzul jalala here is, lafzul jalala is definite. It is the greatest example of a definite word, but there's only one God. So Allah, the lafzul jalala is specific. It's only referring to one thing, the one God. Allahul Azim, therefore the Azim is, the sifah is definite. Allahul Azim. The next example is Ar-Rasulul Kareem, which means the noble or the generous messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we can see here, Ar-Rasul, it has the alif lam, therefore it is definite. Naturally, this means the sifah al-Kareem must also be definite. So if this was indefinite, it would have been Rasulun Kareem, Rasulun Kareemun, a generous or noble messenger. But in this case, it has the alif lam of ta'rif. It is ma'rifa, the noble or generous messenger. Therefore, because it has the alif lam, so does the sifah. In this case, in my example, Rasul is a messenger. It is, in this case, it is nakira, it is indefinite. Therefore, the sifah is also definite, because remember the golden rule, the sifah always copies the mawsuf in definitude. The adjective always copies the thing it is describing in definitude. The third example is Qasrun Azim, a great palace. If you think about it for a second, I mentioned that murakkab tawsifi is incomplete. Why is it incomplete? It doesn't convey a complete meaning, right? It should be here somewhere. Forms part of a sentence. As you can see, it's a phrase. It forms part of a sentence. So you might be wondering, what does that mean? This is a good example. Qasrun Azim. Unlike murakkab tamm, which conveys a complete meaning and is also known as a sentence, murakkab tawsifi doesn't convey a complete meaning. Qasrun Azim, a great palace. What about it? Was it just built? Is it nice? Are people surrounding it? What about it? The information is not complete. It's simply we're just mentioning a great palace. It's not a complete sentence. We need more information in order to make it a complete sentence. Qasrun Azim, a great palace, is, in terms of being a sentence, it's incomplete, and that's why it's known as murakkab tawsifi. The adjectival phrase is a phrase for a reason, because it doesn't convey a complete meaning. It needs other words to convey complete meaning and become a complete sentence. Al-Bayt al-Saghir, Al-Bayt al-Saghir, the small house. Bustanun Nadhif is a clean garden. Tamrun Hulw, sweet dates. At-Tamarul Hulw, the sweet dates. Perfect example of the sifah copying the mawsuf, the adjective, copying the described word in definitude. Malikun Salih, Malikun salihun is a righteous king or a pious king. Al-Bahr al-Malih is the salty sea. Shay'un tayyib is a good thing. Ar-Rajul al-Tayyib is the good man. Muhammadun ar-Rasul, Muhammad the messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Rabbun Ghafur, the forgiving Lord, meaning Allah Azza wa Jal, the forgiving Lord. We have Rabbun Ghafur, we have a forgiving Lord. Dhanbun Azim, a great sin. Rajulun Qabih, an ugly man, or it can mean a bad man. Yani he's qabih, he's ugly by virtue of his sins that he has committed. Al-Jubn al-Radi, Al-Jubn al-Radi, the bad cheese. So the cheese might have gone off, it might have gone stale, therefore it is the bad cheese. Khubzun Jayyid wa Tamrun Hulw, good bread and sweet dates. Ar-Rajul al-Salih wal-Malikul Kareem, the pious man and the generous king. Tuffahun Ahmar, red apple, a red apple. Al-Bittikh al-Hulw, Al-Bittikh al-Hulw, the sweet melon. Al-Wardul Ahmar, the red rose. You might be wondering, why is Ahmar singular? Why is the dhamma a singular dhamma? Why is it not tanween like in tuffah? However, this is something we will copy later. As we mentioned in one of the first lessons, the tanween generally signifies a noun, is definite. It's not all the time, but this will all become much clearer in future lessons, inshallah. Now we will translate these phrases into Arabic. Once again, I suggest you pause this video, do the translations yourself, and then come back and check them with mine. So number 1, the strong place is Al-Mahallul Mashidu. Al-Mahall Al-Mashid, the strong place. 2, the small house is Al-Bayt Al-Saghir. Al-Bayt Al-Saghir. Number 3, a beautiful flower. These words, as far as I can remember, were not mentioned in the book. However, I have translated them for you anyway. Zahra Jamila. Zahratun Jamila. Zahra means flower and Jamil means beautiful. In this lesson, we mentioned that the sifah, the adjective, follows the mawsuf, the thing being described, in definitude. I mentioned that it follows in other things too, which will be covered in later lessons, but for the purposes of this example, I do have to clarify that the sifah, the adjective, copies the mawsuf in word gender too. However, we haven't learnt word gender yet. This will be covered in the next lesson, inshallah. Zahratun Jamila is a beautiful flower. So don't be bogged down with word gender for this time. And being after next lesson, it'll be clear, inshallah. Number 4, the ugly man is Ar-Rajulu Al-Qabih. Number 5, the broad street is Ash-Shari'ul Arid. Ash-Shari' Al-Arid. Number 6, a pious man is Rajulun Salih. Rajulun Salih, the sweet milk. Number 7 is Al-Labanu Al-Hulw. Al-Labanu Al-Hulw. Number 8 is the just king. That's Al-Maliku Al-Adil. Al-Maliku Al-Adil. Adilun, the just, was mentioned in the previous lesson as far as I can recall. Number 9, the great palace is Al-Qasru Al-Azim. Al-Qasru Al-Azim. Number 10, the easy lesson, such as this one, is ad-darsu as-sahlu. Ad-darsu as-sahl. Number 11 is a beautiful horse, so that is farasun jamil. As I mentioned, jamil means beautiful. Number 12, a sweet fruit. I don't think the word fruit has been mentioned. If it has, maybe I forgot, but fakihatun hulw. We've learned that hulw means sweet. We haven't learned how to make words feminine yet, so we can ignore that for the time being, because fakiha is a feminine word, therefore the sifah has to be feminine too, but this will be covered in lesson 4, word gender. Number 13, the small place, is al-mahall al-saghir. Al-mahall al-saghir. Number 14 is the good horse, that is al-farasu al-jayyid. Al-farasu al-jayyid. Number 15 is the wide house. Al-shari', my mistake, I read number 5, not 15. Al-bayt al-wasi'. Al-bayt al-wasi' is the wide, al-wasi' house. The wide house is al-bayt al-wasi'. Al-wasi'. Al-bayt al-wasi'. I've repeated that so many times now and I don't know why. Number 16, the good bread or the good milk. Al-khubz al-jayyid aw al-jubn al-jayyid. That is my mistake. The number 16 is the good bread or the good milk. I translated it as the good bread or the good cheese. As you can probably tell, I'm quite hungry right now. It should have been al-khubz al-jayyid aw al-laban al-jayyid. The good bread or the good milk. I translated it as the good bread or the good cheese. That is my mistake. Number 17, a pious boy and a transgressing boy. That is waladun salihun wa waladun fasiqun. Waladun salih wa walad fasiq. Number 18, the last example, is a large masjid and a small garden. That is al-masjid al-kabir wal-bustan al-saghir. Al-masjid al-kabir, the large masjid, the large mosque, wal-bustan al-saghir, and the small garden. So that brings us to the end of today's lesson, and in the next lesson, as I mentioned, we will cover word gender, inshallah. If there's anything that I've not explained properly or you've not understood properly, as I've said, feel free to leave a comment and I will get back to you, inshallah. But with that, I will let you go. Ma'as salama.